This is Congress News for the week of Sunday, 29th August, 2021.
The COVID-19 crisis has sent the world's economy reeling. Growth is reversing, unemployment is surging, and there's rising fear of a prolonged global downturn.
This is a gigantic human crisis that we're dealing with right now.
We basically have a crisis of uncertainty.
We can be relatively optimistic about the extent at which credit losses will impact our future.
Candidly, we're not really sure when revenues will recover.
This week, we continue our special coverage of the recent release from the CWBN Global Intelligence Unit.
Marlon Jameson, Executive Attaché to Dr. Woodruff, will share more on the nature and implications of the deepening crisis impacting the Earth.
It is becoming more evidently clear that this pandemic that we are in it's carrying many more implications than simply health. And like climate change, the pandemic is changing global societies in very profound ways.
Coronavirus, which has been rising steeply across the globe, the Delta variant has been driving a surge in cases. Countries are grappling with new infections and growing hospitalizations, with breakthrough infections observed among the vaccinated.
Delta is the most transmissible of the variants identified so far. Has been identified in at least 85 countries and is spreading rapidly among unvaccinated populations.
New variants are rising. We now have the Delta variant that is gripping the earth and driving up the global infection rate. It is twice as infectious as the original coronavirus strain. And while Delta is doing its damage, we have other variants already lined up and surging behind it. The Lambda variant, which was discovered in Peru in Latin America, is suspected by scientists to be even more infectious than the Delta variant and potentially capable of evading the antibodies produced by the vaccines.
The virus, the Delta variant itself, is really circulating in areas of low level of vaccine coverage, and in the context of very limited and inconsistent use of public health and social measures.
And all of this rampant development of variants is being driven by unvaccinated populations. Those populations are acting as virus factories, allowing the virus to produce new variants with even more deadly mutations.
As the COVID pandemic continues unabated, sending out multiple ripples across every sector of global society, it is evident that the earth is in the grip of a crisis that cannot be resolved by man.
And as governments have been doing their best, there is an intensifying pushback against vaccination policies from their populations.
Some claim the jab will make women sterile. Others say it'll cause erectile dysfunction in men. There are even rumors the vaccine itself causes COVID-19.
I don't want a poison forced into me.
I'm tired of y'all trying to control us.
Since it's called an experimental drug, I'm definitely not going to be a lab rat.
I'm against this forceful vaccine. I mean, nobody knows what it contains.
The governments are trying to walk a very thin line. It's a very delicate balancing act that they're trying to achieve. And they are trying to reopen the economy, which of course allows people to put food on the table and the society to move forward productively. But at the same time, they're trying to do that while keeping as many people as safe as possible. Leaders of the earth, whether in government or business or industry leaders are trying to cut the baby in two. The only problem is that they don't have the wisdom of God to help them to do so. And their efforts are creating a problematic distinction between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, which will only increasingly be seen as discriminatory and therefore will be fought against.
tear gas and water cannon across Europe and growing anger over coronavirus restrictions. In Athens, Greek police tried to break up protests against compulsory COVID-19 vaccinations. Some in the crowd threw petrol bombs. The police responded with tear gas. In the United Kingdom, thousands of people rallied in London against what they say is the erosion of civil liberties, after the government's track and trace app meant more than 600,000 people were told to isolate at home earlier this month. The coronavirus pandemic is far from over, and neither is the debate about how to reopen economies while keeping everybody safe and happy.
As the Earth speeds towards fragmentation, the crisis is bringing profound civilizational and existential considerations for humanity.
Our ICUs are completely and utterly full of young people between 20 and 50 that are
You told me not to touch you. Who are you referring to as COVID idiots?
Yes,
are you saying
And that is putting massive amounts of pressure within societies that can explode at any point and in any way. And the mounting pressure being produced by a deepening COVID-19 pandemic will exploit the points of weakness within the fabric of all societies across the nations of the earth. And the eruptions will flow quickly into already excavated channels of racial and tribal tensions, class rivalries, people's sense of historic injustice, discrimination. You take your pick. Any point of weakness within any society is a potential explosion point for chaos for governments to have to try to handle.
In the midst of the intensifying crises, calamity, chaos and confusion sweeping across the planet, we continue to follow God.
It is all the Lord's doing as He moves us towards the end of time. And that is comforting for us because we know His heart. We know our God. We know His heart towards us. And we know that behind all of the crisis unfolding in the earth, there is a redemptive intent. Therefore, we're walking forward with confidence and with total knowledge that our God will be with us as we follow Him towards the end of time. The God of our journey protects us. He will provide a barrier between that which is darkening the earth, and He will provide light to us as we continue to follow His guidelines and instruction. Therefore, as the earth gets dark, our hearts are filled with joy. We continue to track God within our Congress, even as we continue to track Him in the midst of the crisis unfolding across the earth.
And for your scripture of the week, it comes from Ephesians chapter 1, verse 18 and 19. I pray also that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which He has called you, the riches of His glorious inheritance in the saints, and His incomparably great power for us who believe. And that was your Congress News for the week of Sunday, 29th August, 2021.